And now I would like to invite back to the stage Jean Houston to maybe, Jean, if you could share with us a little bit of your experience in your interaction with Eleanor Roosevelt. I seem to understand that you had some really interesting conversations with her about what it means perhaps to be a future ancestor or to create the possible human.
Well, thank you so much. Indeed, I did know Mrs. Roosevelt. It was 1954. I was president of the student body of Julia Richmond High School in New York. Mrs. Roosevelt lived about 7 blocks away, and she had taken to visiting high schools and activating the student leaders to think in a new way. She came to our school and she spoke about how important it was to be involved in some way with the United Nations, some way, and that the great task of our time was making human rights matter. And she spoke to us of our lives, that the greater purposes that we had in this time for making a better world. Now, this is 1954, and she said, "You're living in the most important time in human history, and what you do will profoundly make a difference as to whether we grow or whether we die." And she spoke to us of our lives, that the greater purpose that we had for making a better self in order to make a better world. And then she spoke to us individually, and with words that I could only describe as wands, words that were wands, and with a pungent language that sparked our spirits as she called forth a new sense of purpose for our lives. And she said, we have to face the fact that either all of us are going to die together or we're going to learn to live together. And if we were going to live together, we have to talk. Again, the most important time in human history. And she said, what you don't do can be a destructive force. And she asked us to consider a career working in some way with the United Nations, which subsequently I did. And that sometimes, well, she warned us that the work would be very, very hard and often thankless. And sometimes we would wonder if it was even worth the effort. But that when we whined, as we did, and we said, we didn't like the idea of being unappreciated, she said, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. And then she would add, when will our consciousness grow so tender that we will act to prevent human misery rather than avenge it? One day she turned to me, because I had subsequent meetings with her, and she said, and I will try to imitate what she sounded like. She said, my dear, I rather suspect that you're going to have a most interesting career. But remember, my dear, that is a woman who is trying to make a difference with great and good work. You can expect to be trashed. She didn't exactly use the word trashed. It was something like that. And that she also said, remember that a woman is just like a tea bag. You put her in hot water and she just gets stronger, which turned out to be very true. You remember that as a member of the United States delegation to the United Nations, the General Assembly, thanks to her steely, unstoppable determination, she got the United Nations General Assembly to adopt something that she helped create, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And then throughout the 1950s, as the thick fog of conservatism settled over the United States, she became a strong voice for liberalism. She supported equal rights, equal pay for women, national insurance, and deplored the new brand of anti-communist paranoia whipped up by Joe McCarthy and the House of Un-American Activities. And she insisted that fear was the greatest enemy. the greatest enemy of all, and warned against governments that preyed on terror in order to subdue the least protest among their own citizens. And she said, I'll never forget, she said, surely we cannot be so stupid as to let ourselves become shackled by senseless fears. And for the leading democracy in the world to indulge them is a very great danger, not to us, but to the whole world. Well, in knowing her as I did, I have to say she embodied the qualities that I think they're the qualities of the possible human who can help create the possible world. And that was Eleanor Roosevelt, as I knew her.
Wow. Jean, I just thank you so much. I just always love it, how you share the most profound wisdoms and teachings in real life context, which is just so incredibly important. And also what you just shared, that what you don't do can become a destructive force. And that is just so important. And that brings me to Youssef. I would like to ask you also to share some very brief closing thoughts that you have.
Again, I'm speechless after listening to my good friend Jean. When I was in Burundi, we went around asking people, what is peace for you? And they basically said three things. The first one is to have a roof over one's head that does not leak. Speaking of home for humanity. Second is to go to the field, to school, to visit a neighbor without being killed, robbed, or raped. And the third one is to give us a government that does not silence our voice. And that has, despite the restrictive mandate that I've had, really served as a guiding light. And Burundi, unfortunately, is in dire straits simply because they silenced those voices, the citizens' voices. My country is surviving because they threw a government, they threw out a regime and regained the sacred governance privilege, which is the freedom of expression and the freedom of assembly, that enabled my country to get to the edge of the precipice but not fall. Pull back always at the right moment. And speaking of women, they're often in my tongue. It is thanks to the leadership of women that we have developed this resilience that keeps us alive despite COVID and the multiple social and economic ills that are afflicting us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Youssef. These are the things to not only keep in mind, but to bear in heart, so that we can actually learn how to be those possible humans that Jean has talked about. This is the ways for us to human well. And that's what I like exploring. How do we human well together? Maybe I could ask Rama and Alexander to share their closing poem, if you have that on hand. And then Anneloes and I will say a few comments and we'll move to the question and answer period.
Thanks for asking for a closing poem, because this is about how the heart and the art, which is in the center of the heart, can serve the earth. And I want to just, in response to the question, say, for us, unity, very much in line with the white paper, is about the interconnected wholeness of existence, which science and spirituality both point towards. So this world, you know, this sacred democracy, this earth civilization, this what I call our utopia, this world we envision stirs in our womb, itches under our feet, and bursts with crystalline clarity from our lips. This is no utopia or fairyland. We feel it, we touch it, we hear it, we smell it. We want it as our children's birthright. The only sensible way forward is to listen to our heartbeat, to heed the call of spirit, the wisdom of the ancients, the pulse of the nascent that beats steadily in our veins. We are here to co-create our utopia, an earth civilization for all life, and nothing can stop us.
Let us, friends, ignite a sacred democracy. The poem you're going to hear is a participatory one. It's created in this very moment. Friends, join the Agora and join the chorus. We are igniting a sacred democracy. Join the Agora. It's the call of the time, the critical call of life. We are birthing a new paradigm. Join the Agora. Elect yourself. Become the future human that is waiting to be born already was known to Erasmus from Rotterdam. But how do we lure the earth back? Join the Agora. Peace is a dynamic and complex process of becoming a better self for a better world. Yes, but join the Agora. Build a home on earth, a home that roof does not leak. Join the Agora. Every effort should be made to unleash the transformative power of women who need to join and lead the Agora. Love liberates. Join the Agora. And let the bird of humanity fly once again with two wings. Now, join the
Agora.
Wow, join the Agora. Yes, we have joined. We have joined. Oh, this is amazing. And I love how you've woven that together so spontaneously on the spot. It's just incredible. This is for me, and I think that Alexander Laszlo joins me in this, a true demonstration of the kind of new paradigm consciousness you need to be embodying and sharing and creating from. And before we go into the Q&A, I would like to ask all of you to share in one word, if you need 2 words, okay, take 2, but in one word, what's alive in you right now in your heart, and just please write it in the chat so we can experience that from each other, and it gives you also a voice right now, all of you in this place. Alexander.
Yeah, you know, I mean, this is sacred space, and this is sacred time. And what is amazing for me here is that this can be normal. This can be us here, now, all the time, finding each other, interconnecting, co-emerging and co-creating. Well, this, so far, we have done today is just blowing me away. Of course, we have some amazing people who have been sharing with us and bringing us forward. It reminds me of this little saying from Hafiz, that 14th century Persian poet, who declared, I am the hole on the flute through which God's breath blows. I am the hole on the flute through which the universe expresses. And this is what we are doing here. We are being flowed by each other. We are creating the containers, the fields that we are interacting with. This helps emerge the kind of realities that we are talking about here, but it actually is an act of co-creation. So I don't want to say more about this because we are simply doing this. It's very inspirational to me. I thank everyone who's participating in this, of course, because all of you who are listening as well are co-creating this by participating and being here. Absolutely. This is the Agora.